The first thing Evelyn Harper said wasn't hello. She whispered, "Don't tell your husband I called." "Come alone." Her voice sounded so frightened that I looked toward my front door before answering, half expecting someone to be standing on my porch. "Why?" I asked. She lowered her voice even more. "Because if Mark finds out we're talking, he'll make sure you never learn why he married you." Then the call ended. I stood frozen in my kitchen, while the coffee maker hissed behind me and the ceiling fan clicked overhead. We'd been living in our new farmhouse outside Franklin, Tennessee, for exactly 7 days. 7 days. That's all it took for a stranger to shake 12 years of trust. A minute later, Mark walked in carrying another moving box. He smiled, kissed my forehead, and asked, "Everything okay?" I forced a smile. "Just a spam call." It was the first lie I'd ever told my husband. He nodded, poured himself a cup of coffee, and casually looked through the kitchen, window toward the old red barn sitting, beyond the backyard. His eyes stayed there just a little too long. "I'll be home late," he said. "Ryan wants to finish sorting Dad's paperwork." His older brother again. Lately, there always seemed to be paperwork, another meeting, another excuse. Before leaving, he stopped at the back door. "One thing," he said. "Don't go inside the barn. The floor's weak. I don't want you getting hurt." Then he smiled, climbed into his truck, and drove away. My sister Rachel used to say, "When somebody warns you away from something you never planned to touch." Bless his heart, that's where the truth's hiding. I tried unpacking boxes, but I couldn't focus. Every few minutes, I found myself staring at the barn. Around noon, curiosity finally won. I called Evelyn back. She answered before the first ring finished. "I knew you couldn't ignore this." "Tell me the truth," I said. "Why did you really sell us this house?" She went quiet for several seconds before answering. "Emily, I didn't choose you." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" Her next sentence made my blood run cold. "Your husband spent 3 years making sure you would be the woman who moved into that house because he believed you'd unknowingly help him recover something. His family has been hunting for 15 years. I couldn't speak. My hand tightened around the phone until my knuckles turned white. "You're saying my husband planned this? Before we even bought the house?" Evelyn let out a tired sigh. "No, Emily, I'm saying he planned it before he ever showed you the listing." I laughed. "But it came out hollow. That doesn't make any sense." "It will." She paused. "Meet me at the old Miller Road church in 30 minutes. Don't tell anyone. Don't let anyone follow you. And if you see Mark or Ryan..." She stopped. "Drive away." The call ended. For the next 20 minutes, I kept telling myself this was ridiculous. Mark wasn't a criminal. He wasn't a liar. He was the man who brought me soup when I had the flu, who remembered every anniversary, who still held my hand at church. That dog won't hunt, I thought. None of this fit the man I married. Even so, I grabbed my keys. The old church sat at the end of a quiet county road surrounded by oak trees. Evelyn was already waiting on a weathered bench with a small metal lockbox resting beside her. She looked over both shoulders before speaking. "Thank you for coming." "Start talking," I said. She slid an old photograph into my hands. My stomach dropped. It showed Mark, Ryan, their father, and Evelyn standing in front of my house. The date on the back was April 12th, 2012, 8 years before Mark and I met. "Why is my husband in this picture?" I whispered. Evelyn looked me straight in the eye. "Because this wasn't my house back then." I frowned. "What?" "It belonged to Mark's grandfather." My pulse quickened. Mark told me his grandfather never owned property in Tennessee. He lied. Before I could answer, she unlocked the metal box. Inside were property records, faded family photographs, and a handwritten journal. She pulled out one folded letter and handed it to me. Across the front, in neat blue ink, were 7 words, "Do not let my grandsons find this." My heart started pounding. "Who wrote it?" Evelyn swallowed hard. "The man your husband has been lying about for 15 years. Just as I reached for the letter, a truck door slammed somewhere behind the church. Evelyn's face drained of color. She grabbed my wrist and whispered, "Don't turn around, because if that's Ryan, he already knows we're here." The sound of boots crunching across the gravel grew louder behind us. Every instinct told me to turn around, but I remembered Evelyn's warning. I stayed where I was, staring at the old letter in my hands. Then a familiar voice called out, "Remily?" My heart nearly stopped. It wasn't Ryan. It was Mark. "There you are," he said with a relaxed smile as he walked toward us. "When I stopped by the house for lunch, and the neighbor said they saw your car heading this way, I figured I'd check on you." His voice was warm, calm, exactly like the man. I'd always known, if I hadn't spoken to Evelyn, I would have believed every word. He looked at her and smiled politely. "Mrs. Harper, I didn't realize you two knew each." Other B. Evelyn forced a smile. "Just catching up." Mark nodded. "Oh, well, I'll be darned. Small world, oh." He acted so naturally that I almost questioned my own judgment. Then I noticed his eyes. They weren't looking at Evelyn. They were locked on the folded letter in my hand. Just for a second. Then they returned to me. "Ready to head home?" he asked. I slipped the letter into my purse before answering. "In a minute," Mark smiled again, but this time it didn't reach his eyes. "Sure, take your time." He walked back to his truck without another word. Neither of us moved until the sound of his engine disappeared down the road. Evelyn finally exhaled. "Did you see it?" She whispered. "See what?" "He never asked why you were here." I blinked. She was right. Any husband who unexpectedly found his wife, meeting the former owner of their house, would have had questions. Mark didn't ask a single one. Almost like he already knew. A chill ran through me. "Open the letter," Evelyn said. My hands shook as I unfolded the yellowed paper. The first sentence hit me like a punch to the chest. If my grandsons ever convince a young woman named Emily to move into this house, they've finally carried out the plan I feared. My breath caught. "How could he know my name?" I whispered. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "Because Emily," she swallowed hard. "That letter wasn't written 15 years ago. It was written 18 months before you married Mark. I read the first line again, hoping I'd misunderstood it. I hadn't. My name was there in black ink. Emily. Not my future wife. Not whoever buys this house. My actual name." My hands started shaking. "That's impossible," I whispered. "Mark and I weren't even engaged." 18 months before the wedding." Evelyn nodded slowly. "I know." I looked at her. "Then how could his grandfather know my name?" She took a deep breath. "Because he didn't write that part." My stomach dropped. "Someone added it later." She pointed to the paper. "Look closely." I held the letter under the sunlight. The first few lines were written with faded blue ink. My name was darker, written with a different pen. Someone had gone back and changed the letter. "Who?" I asked. Evelyn didn't answer. Instead, she handed me a small envelope that had been hidden inside the journal. This is what they were really searching for. Inside was a single Polaroid photograph. It showed Mark standing inside the old red barn years before we bought the property. He wasn't alone. Ryan was beside him, holding a shovel. Between them sat a rusted steel box that had been pulled from beneath the barn floor. Written across the bottom of the photo were 6 words that made my blood run cold. "We found it!" But not all. I stared at the picture. "What does that mean?" Evelyn's voice became almost a whisper. "They found 1 box. 1? There were always 2. My pulse quickened. "What's in the second one?" She looked directly into my eyes. "That's the problem. Emily. Nobody knows." Before I could ask another question, my phone vibrated. It was a security alert from our home camera system. Motion detected. Backyard barn. I opened the live feed. My breath caught. Mark's truck was parked beside the barn. Ryan's truck was behind it. Both men were carrying digging tools. They weren't cleaning the barn. They were tearing up the floor. Mark looked straight toward the camera mounted above the back door. Then, slowly, he smiled. A second later, my phone buzzed with a text from him. "Honey, where are you? I need your help with something under the barn, and I think I finally found what we've been looking for." For a second, I forgot how to breathe. Mark's text stayed on my screen. "I think I finally found what we've been looking for." We've? I had no idea there was anything to look for. That one word told me everything. I looked at Evelyn. She quietly nodded. "He's testing you," she said. "He wants to know how much you already know." I slipped my phone into my purse, without replying. "What if he's already found it?" I asked. "Then he wouldn't be asking you to come home." She gave me a sad smile. "He's still looking." We drove back together, but instead of pulling into the driveway, we parked across the road behind an old feed store. My attorney, whom I'd called on the drive, arrived with 2 county investigators. I handed them the property records, the altered letter, the photographs, and the journal Evelyn had protected for years. One investigator frowned as he compared the original survey to the one filed with the county. These boundary lines were changed after the owner's signature, he said. Someone committed fraud. Minutes later, the investigators walked onto the property just as Mark and Ryan pried open a rusted steel box buried beneath the barn floor. Inside wasn't money or gold. It was the original property ledger, the grandfather's unaltered will, and signed records proving the family's land had been transferred through forged documents years earlier. Ryan tried to grab the box, but an investigator stepped between him and the evidence. Mark didn't move. He simply looked at me. There wasn't anger in his eyes. There was regret. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said quietly. "Then why build our marriage on a lie?" I asked. He lowered his head. "Because I thought if I found the papers first, nobody would ever know what my family had done." "And if I never found out?" He couldn't answer. The investigation lasted months. The forged records were overturned. The stolen land was returned to its rightful owner, and Ryan was later convicted for his role in the fraud. Mark wasn't charged with forgery, but the evidence proved he had knowingly concealed it. We divorced before the year ended. The hardest part wasn't losing my husband. It was accepting that the man I loved had spent years protecting a lie, instead of protecting our marriage. Today I still live in that farmhouse. The barn is gone, replaced by a small garden where tomatoes, wildflowers, and fresh herbs grow every summer. Sometimes neighbors ask why I stayed. I simply smile and tell them, a house can hide secrets for years, but the truth always finds a way to come home.